at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, good morning and welcome to Tea Time. And oh my goodness, we're in October already. I can't believe that we're almost at the end of the year. 2023 has just flown by like unincredibly, really, really quick. It has, I blinked and we're already in October. We've got a couple months left. We got a couple tea times left, but today we're joined here by the incredible Aditi uh, Wardhan Singh, and she is the creator of Raising World Children. She's an author. She's awareness for multicultural diversity. We're going to talk about multicultural and the importance of that, and all the incredible work that she does. She's got some amazing children's books out there. So I want you to go and check out her platform. You'll see her website up during the show, and in the audio you'll see it all in the description, so be sure to check that out. Sign up. She's got some really incredible things on that website. I mean, if you're looking for something different, you're going to find different on her website. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Miss Liz. If you're just joining into Miss Liz and you just found me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give it a quick like, and do all of that good stuff. So let's do the disclaimer and let's get this tea rolling. And we're going to get a good strong cup of tea this morning for multicultural. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment and taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It's significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect your wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. Again, all tea times in 2023 are done on Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's not a Thursday, it's a rescheduled tea time or a surprise guest that is coming on. So now a little bit about my guest. Let's get that out there, and then we're going to get her in here, and then we're going to spill a good TEA. Aditi Wardhan Singh is a multiple award-winning, best-selling author of 9 diverse books, like the picture book voted Teacher Pick by Amazon, How Our Skin Sparkles, and the award-winning book for being a global citizen, Raising a Global Mindset. Her books aim to give multicultural mindsets a strong sense of identity while building cultural awareness. About her work, she's been featured on a number of global publications and broadcasts. She is one of the leading voices on cultural sensitivity and self-empowerment. In 2017, she founded RaisingWorldChildren's.com, a global online and in-print publication for multicultural families. An Indian American raised in Kuwait, Aditi now raises her children who are American of Indian heritage. And you can find all of her on Facebook, Instagram, and her website. So let me get her in here and let's spill some cup of tea with you this morning. Welcome, Aditi.
Hi, thank you for having me, Liz.
It is a pleasure to have you. And we were just talking about dry mouths and losing our voices and all of that. In the morning, I lose my voice all the time, guys. So if you see me sipping on my tea, it's just because it's morning time. We got to slowly wake up. So, Aditi, I want to start off where I start, where everybody. Who were you as a little girl, and who are you now as a grown woman?
Wow, that's a big one. As a little girl, I think I was a dreamer. I dreamt of I used to imagine myself in movies, that I was a movie star, and I was not a movie star, but like a character in a movie, and I would pretend that there was this boy, and it was me, or I was adventurer, or I was a pirate, or things like that. I had a very lively imagination. Around 9 to 10 years old, and actually it was around 13 when when we got the first computer in our home, was when I was like, oh, I think I want to have my name up in a New York Times best-selling something sometime. That's what I had dreamt of. Now, as a woman, I am still discovering myself every day. Uh, I am evolving as a human. I am a mother of two. I have 9 and 12-year-old who were born wise beyond their ages. So it's been a struggle, and it's wonderful at the same time. I am a global citizen who aspires to help people see how important it is to have a multicultural mindset and have grace in conversations about cultural sensitivity, and how to build confidence within and without.
So when you say global citizen, what do you mean by that?
I mean, someone who is very accepting of other cultures, and who tries to learn from other people around her. I do enjoy watching content across platforms, and I enjoy attending cultural festivals. I enjoy living in US. I haven't had the opportunity to travel a lot, which I dream of doing someday when I make it big as an author. but but till that day comes, I do everything else, like reading, or reading stories about other countries, and watching a lot of content which is from other countries as well.
So Aditi, were you born in Kuwait?
Yes, I was born and raised in Kuwait. Yes.
So what change have you seen coming to America from Kuwait?
Not much. Kuwait and America have pretty similar um the vibe is very similar, because you have malls, you have food stores, you have McDonald's, and you have Burger King, and all that stuff is the same as in Kuwait. The change, I think, primarily is in the people, because in Kuwait there's a kind of invisible divide between the Arab community and uh, the other expats that live around. But that's not the same in US. In US, it's more, we are all intermingling. My kids go to school where, many other culture kids go to. We're not limited to just living within the Indian community per se. So that's, I think, one of the just major changes. Um, Differences, I think it's more about the kind of conversations we get access to, versus there it was more of pretty much like living in India, but with living with facilities that were more like those in US.
So what's the difference between India and Kuwait?
I couldn't tell you.
Because when I do my research, I was like, okay, I'm confused. Am I going to India or am I going to Kuwait?
Yes. So India is, so Kuwait is one of the Gulf countries. So it's basically Muslim. So Kuwait, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, these, and I think a couple of others, they make the Gulf countries. And then India is like 4 hours by flight. Uh, so of course it's Asia. And culturally, of course, India is much more diverse. You have Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and many other religions, and many other languages. India has like around 250 languages spoken within it. There are a lot of differences. Kuwait is like a pinpoint on the world map, if you go to see it.
Okay.
And India, of course, even though it's much smaller in US, but the diversity within India itself is very big. So even just for an example, in like, even though I was in Kuwait, I was living in kind of like an Indian community, like not mostly surrounded by Indians, let's say that. So I had like my neighbor was Christian, was Goan Christian. Like Goa is a state in India. Our friends were Gujarati Indians, which is another state of India. So even within Kuwait, like our community was diverse because our access was to different states of India within our community. So that's
Wow.
something that's very different. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about tea time is I like to know about the different countries, right? So have you
Yeah.
ever gone back home?
To India?
Yeah.
Yes. So in 19, look, we used to go to India. So in Kuwait, since it's so hot, when we were kids, they used to have 3 months of holidays during June, July, August. So every 3 months we would travel to India and visit our relatives, which were all over India. I have not been blessed with having family in one place in India, which is always a pain because when we go back for even a month now, we have to visit like four places, like four different cities in four different corners of India. But back then also it was the same thing. And then luggage was not a problem. Air travel was much better when I was a kid. But still my mom used to make it difficult because we used to end up carrying like a lot of gifts for our relatives and big suitcases. So every person had like two suitcases and then two, three, four handbags and stuff like that. And that's what we used to do. And then in 1990, I don't know if you remember, Saddam Hussein decided from Iraq decided to invade Kuwait. And then of course it was a state of war that time, and we had to leave Kuwait for I think 3 years. My father came back after 1 2 years, and then we realized our house was looted completely. There was nothing left there, so then we had to rebuild. But during those 3 years I was living in India. And then I did my engineering from India also, because in Kuwait you don't have much of higher education. You didn't have it then. I think now you have a lot of online courses you have access to, but then you did not. So I did my computer engineering from India in Mumbai.
So we have a question here for you, Aditi. When Kuwait was invaded, was your whole family moved?
Yes, yes, we all moved. We moved to India. My mother, my brother was 6 months old that time, and we moved to India just with like my mom had stitched gold in her petticoats and one bag of diapers. That's all we left Kuwait with.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand is when you have to pick up and just move, right? You don't have time to grab like your favorite toys or your favorite clothes. It's just
No.
we gotta go and we gotta go now.
Yes. Yeah.
So
No.
how did that impact your life?
Oh, largely, I think that actually hugely impacted what I do, the work I do now, because it was in India where I used to feel the most out of place. Even now, when I go to India, even in US, like if I'm living, having conversations with a lot of people who've just lived in one place in India, my conversations are very different compared to, because sometimes I cannot understand why someone would have that kind of mindset. uh, but that's just because I was not raised in India. So a lot of people will say, oh, don't, when you talk you don't seem very Indian, like you have. I said, but the caveat is that I am not technically Indian, though a lot of Indian traditions and cultures have evolved themselves also. So when I went to India in 1990, I still remember, and I've written extensively about this in all my articles and books, is that a girl in the bus, like going to school, my first day of school, and she's like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Here." And she said, "No, where are you from?" And I, like, that was the first time I understood that people expect you to know which state your parents are from. So and even in that, my parents are not from the same state in India. My father is from the north side and my mom is from the south side. So that also used to be, oh, so it's a love marriage. And I'd be like, no, it's an arranged marriage. We are from the same subculture, but it's just that they grew up in different places. So multiculturally, like even today, my family unit, my family is married to Muslims, Christians. We have like all from Canada, Australia. Like we have all kinds of people within my family because we're very multicultural that way.
So have you always, after you left India, you came to the US. Have you always been in the US since then?
Yes. So I was telling someone the other day that I think in Richmond, the year I completed my 11th year was the longest I've lived in a place. So that's why Richmond will always be home to me because it's the longest I've ever lived. So it's wonderful. We built a home here, and we have our kids here, and it's like lovely.
Well, I think it's nice that you moved around so you have that conversation with the
Yeah.
different countries and the different places, right?
Yeah.
And I think somebody who has stayed in one place and hasn't moved ever, the conversation is different, like you said.
Yes.
They have an experience outside of their communities, so they don't know the differences that are out there.
Yes.
So, what kind of conversations do you have with parents that are from multicultural locations?
That's an interesting question because I was talking about this to my husband last week. That we have noticed that parents, or rather people who've grown up in multiple places, or maybe who've traveled a lot when they were younger, have or have experienced various cultures, even like by living, like they've had friends who have different. They have, like, they'll talk about movies, they'll talk about what books they've read, they'll talk about places they've traveled, they'll talk about experiences, like this happened in my day to day, and they introspect a lot more compared to and I don't want to stereotype, but that's just my personal experience, is that I've seen a lot of people who maybe lived all their life in India in one place, and then they've come to US, and we find it very hard to gel with them because they kind of want to live in the same
Oh, okay.
language,
You
or they
understand what you
want
mean.
to be in the culturally similar place. And mostly the conversations are about, okay, what festival they're celebrating, or I don't know, just pulling each other's legs. That's the main conversation they are more accustomed to. Or I don't know. It just never works for us because somehow it's very one dimensional. The conversations they have, like even if you make a joke in English, sometimes it doesn't register because they're not used to it, and that's their conditioning. That's fine, but it's just like what I have experienced in my
Yeah.
life.
Well, myself as well, Aditi. I've moved a lot of
Yeah.
places, and I find that somebody who has lived in the same area or the same place, and you talk to them and you try and crack a joke or something, they're so closed,
Yeah.
right? They're like, nope, this is the way. Do 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 do. It's like a
Mm.
dotted line, right?
Yes.
You cannot get like a like a roller coaster. You can't go here, you can go there, because then
Yeah.
they're like, no, 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 that's not the way it's done, right?
Yeah.
So I think by moving around and getting involved in the different communities, different countries, you're also building an open conversation for awareness
Yes.
through different areas.
Yeah.
Because if you've gone to a different country, you can say, well, you know what, when I was there, this is what I seen, this is what I got. But if
Yeah.
you stay in one country, you can only talk about that country. You can't,
Yeah.
you can talk about the other countries because you learn them in school and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but it's not the same as when you're moving around and checking them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Aditi, I want to talk to you about multicultural. When you hear the word multicultural, what comes to mind for you?
Like I said, it's more about it's not even about traveling as much as it's about just being open to watching maybe content that is not from your language. Like I'm mainly Hindi speaking, but I watch movies that are in French, I watch movies that are in German. I mean, that's what subtitles are for. They give you a good even if you're watching you I mean, I personally have come to realize that you don't necessarily have to travel, but you should be open to learning. So when you're watching, suppose, a German movie, I've seen there is a lot of similarities even in German behavior, like how a parent talks to a child. uh, because often, like when we were growing up, or when I was going to move to US, a lot of people have this idea in their head that, oh, American values are very different from Indian values. And I correct them now and I tell them that, that's not true. I grew up, because I grew up watching shows where, there was very strong connection about how the parents are dealing with the kids, and so I knew that, it wasn't like from a movie, from just a Avenger movie. It was from watching niche down shows and niche down things, because Kuwait used to have access to American shows. We didn't have access to Indian television, so we
Oh,
never watched Indian. Yeah, we in Kuwait, you have only you had we had only one channel to watch, and that used to show American shows, and that also very sanitized. So they used to edit out any kissing, they used to edit out any. So it was great to watch because it was everything was age appropriate. There was nothing that was not age appropriate, which was great. But yes, when I talk about multicultural living, it's, I'm sorry, my chair is acting funny, is that it's more about wanting to learn. So people who attending local festivals from different cultures, and enjoying different experiences, enjoying different foods, not just your food, enjoying Indian food, American food, German food. My husband and I are big foodies, and we consciously go into, oh, like, what cuisine are we going to try out this month, kind of thing. So it's more about wanting to expose yourself and your family to worlds that are different than your own. That could be via travel, that could be via books, by television, by movies, or whatever way you choose. But it has to be a conscious decision, and someone who's doing that, I think, is multicultural in their own way. A lot of people have this misconception that, oh, if you're living in a all a place where we have only our culture, then we are not multicultural. But guess what, you are going in a community, you are going to school where there are other cultures, so that means you are multicultural just by association. If you are, if you're choosing to go to a school where there are mostly Indians, then you're not. Even if you are in US and you're choosing a situation which is Indian constantly, then you are not multicultural, you're still Indian. In And I'm speaking about Indian specifically because that's what I know. That could be different, but this, I think, applies for most communities, where often you'll see a certain culture, they're like, very niche down, and they don't want to expose their kids. Even if their kids have other friends, they don't invite them over. uh, that's not something that I do. Like, my house is touch wood, God bless, I'm very happy about it, that a lot of my son's friends, they come home, my daughter's friends, they all come home, they have sleepovers with parties. I feed them Indian food. My son says, Mom, why do you treat my friends like your kids? I said, because my house, my rules. If they're coming in my home, I'm not ordering pizza for them. If I'm tired, I will. But if I'm making dosa, I'll be like, hey, you want a dosa? They'll be like, okay, we'll try one. And I'm like, okay, try it. How else are you going to, how else will they learn? And I can't keep ordering different kind of food just to appease someone. This is my life. If you're coming in my home, isn't it wonderful that you get to experience something new? And I hope that my kids are doing the same.
I like that. I like that way because it's your house, your rules, but you're also bringing in traditions to these children that might not ever have a chance to know this.
Yeah.
It's opening up the foods and traditions and festivals and conversation.
Yes.
And you never know, in the future they might be married to somebody who, and they'll be like, no, I already ate that, and that's not my thing. And so, what is your favorite food from India?
Oh, funnily, you will laugh at this. My favorite food from India is called Indian Chinese.
Okay, so you
But
got two countries mixed in.
it's called Indo-Chinese food, and I will tell you, it tastes nothing like Chinese food. And any Chinese person is going to laugh when they hear this because they don't know what it means. But it's a specific kind of cooking that's a mix of Chinese. It's mix of Indian spices um, with Chinese flavors, Szechuan cooking. It's kind of mix. So it's super delicious. It's super spicy, and most Indians, if they have, Thai food is very close to it. So since I don't in Richmond, I don't have access to any good. Actually, around me, I don't think even in DC there's any good Indo-Chinese place. So Thai food is the closest. So we'll constantly order Thai food. So yeah.
So when you have these children over that are friends of your children, what
Yeah.
what recipe do you usually make for them?
I don't. I make whatever I'm cooking. I'll just give them some more of it.
Well, I like that.
Yeah. So if I'm making dal rice, I'll give them dal rice. If I'm making rajma rice, I'll give them rajma rice. If I make parathas, I'll be like, hey, I'm making parathas. You want them with egg or you want them with potato? I'll give them that much option. But like I said, if I'm tired, if I'm ordering for myself, I'll order for them also. But yes, if there's food, I mean, why would I order especially for them? It's like,
right?
It's not a party. If it's a party, of course I order special food.
I like that. That's the kind of the way we got raised with my grandparents is like what's on the table is what you eat or you do
Yeah.
without.
Yes, that's fine, and if the kid says no, I tried it, I didn't like it very much. Because last Diwali party, I remember the kids were like, oh, we want to try this. And my son and my daughter are. I'm very ashamed of it. I mean, not ashamed is not the right word, but embarrassed is, I think, better word is that they are very picky eaters. They don't eat anything new, even in my home. Like in my home, they have every vegetable, but for God knows what reason, they are very picky. But all my kids' friends are not like that. So they came home and they were like, oh, we'll try this, we'll try that. And then there are a couple things they didn't like. It's like, do we have to eat this? I said, no, it's okay. You tried it. Thank you so much. You can leave that. And then that's fair, because, most of the time when I make the basic foods, they're fine with it. So it's okay. Because festival food is, of course, a little bit more acquired taste.
So festival food is different than the regular traditional food.
Usually, yes.
So what's the difference?
So usually, like for Diwali, we make a lot of snacks. Uh, there are like they're gujiyas, there's chakli. These are like specific because they're deep fried. So we don't usually use it in regular cooking. In regular cooking, there's usually like dals which are like pressure cooked, and rice or rotis and parathas, like flatbreads made from wheat, much more healthier.
Okay.
And then on festival season you'll have pani puri. Like we still have pani puri regularly also, but not as like on festival times. You'll see most people love having, because these are all deep fried and heavy foods, right? The sweets, like festival season has a lot more sweet making, which otherwise I don't think anyone even eats cake anymore these days. So everyone's very weight conscious and that ways. But so you have laddus, you have gujiyas, you have pedas. These are all sweets, cookies. Nowadays, because of course our kids are like more American, so they want, mom, can we have brownies as also? So I'm like, okay, fine, of course. So we'll have one, or during Diwali we'll have one cookies or one, brownies to appease the younger crowd also.
So Adita, your children were raised in America, so they have the American mindset, right?
Yes.
Uh, And I feel that the Americans are scared to try different, right?
I think again that's I think
Because
that
I know
totally
in
depends.
Canada too, they're like that. We're really like, oh, I don't know. Like I like to try different stuff. I like to try
Yes.
different foods, and I'll be like, oh, I tried it once, that's not for me. And then
Yes.
I'll be like, oh my goodness, that's so good. Now I need a recipe, so I got
Yes.
to go hunting for a recipe.
Yes.
But your children were grown up in the States, so they had that openness of the American food from family members and friends that they've been to, right? So when they come home, do they say like, "Mom, you should try this," or "Mom, you should do this," or
No, like I said, unfortunately, my kids are very picky. So when they go to someone's house, they'd be like, no, thank you. I don't want to have that. Unless it's pasta or dal rice, like, kind of. If there's something familiar, they'll have it. If it's a spaghetti and meatballs, they'll have it. But if it's anything, and I keep telling them, I said, the point of going to your friend's house is not to trouble the mother. So can you please just eat whatever's served? And then, of course, as hosts, they feel obligated. So they'll just heat up some nuggets for my kids. And I tell them, I said, that's not right. But I don't know why, because even when I was pregnant, even when they were young, I exposed them to all different kind of foods. But for some reason, fries and nuggets is like a safe food. I mean, in my home, they eat all vegetables and they eat all curries. I'm making them sound very bad. They're not that bad. But it's just that if something, like if I make ladies' fingers in a certain way and someone else makes it and it looks different, even though they know it's their brain knows, but they will not be willing to have it, which is very weird. So I don't know what that is. I think it's a texture issue, maybe. I don't know. I can't excuse it also because it's kind of rude, but what can I do?
but it could be the texture because a lot of people suffer from that, right? The texture,
Yes,
it could be the
yes,
same exact food, but because it's made differently or it looks differently, it's like I'm not sure about that. Like
yes. Yeah,
it could be
I
the
think
same
that's a
recipe,
lot.
and you
Yeah,
just make it differently. Like you might fry
yeah,
it a little bit more, you might
yes,
bake it instead of
yes,
frying.
yes.
But it's the same recipe. You're just cooking it in different ways.
Yeah.
I know as a little girl, I was that way. I was really picky. If I seen chicken that was boiled over shake and bake chicken, I was like, I'd do the shake and bake over the
Yes.
boiled chicken.
Yes.
And my
Yeah.
grandmother would say, it's still chicken.
Yeah. I know. I know. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because it's very odd because there are two, three of my friends' house where they go, they'll eat food. But other than that, most houses, if they go, they'll be like, no, they offered us, but we said no. I'm like, no, that, and I'm working with it, working on them constantly, saying, hey, you should try it. But then, over time, I've also realized, I said, our whole family is foodies. Me, my husband, my husband's parents, my parents. I said, where are they going to go? Eventually, they're going to turn foodies also. So I'm not very worried about it.
So, Aditi, I want to ask you, if I give you the letter TEA, what three words would you give me that start with those letters?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
If I give you TEA, what
Yeah.
three words would you give me that start with those three letters?
Oh, wow. Uh, Trustworthy, um encouragement, and what do you do with A? Trustworthy, with A, admirable.
Okay, now you want to tell me why you gave me those three words?
Wow. I think with tea, I think that's what I totally believe in. I always say, in Hindi it's called be everything, but don't sab kuch banna, but ehsan faramosh mat banna. Meaning, do everything in life, but don't ever break someone's trust or be ungrateful. And I think I try to live my life, saying that I think that's paramount, whether it's services I provide to other writers or it's uh, for in my books. I try to make sure that I'm true to what I'm doing, and I want people to be able to trust me as my work as a brand and me as a person. Uh, I think same with encouragement is I look for encouragement and I aspire to give encouragement. A fun story is that when I was in college, this was the first time I did it. We were traveling in train and we were standing at the entrance. So in India that time, now they have, but that time they didn't have doors at the entrance of each compartment. And I was standing there, and this lady was standing, and I cannot forget. I don't remember her face, but I remember she was dressed in this white sari with a brown border, and she looked impeccable with her hair tied in a bun. And there was like, she wasn't very over, but she was very presentable. And she was coming from work. It was like 5:36 in the evening, and I couldn't stop myself, and I said, you know I said, I hope you don't think this is weird, but you look so beautiful, and I hope I grow up and I be like you. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, you don't know how much I needed to hear that today. And she said it in English, and I like, you don't know I'm so thankful that you said that to me. And never stop doing that. And I feel like, all through our journey, you, me, we were just discussing your struggles before the call also, is that we all are going through stuff, and we all need constant encouragement. And I hope and pray that, we all can find it. And if I can help anyone else feel that through my books or through my words or through my compliments, why not? When I was a kid, I remember reading this in moral science class. We used to have moral science class. So we used to say, give three compliments every day to someone. So I can't do three compliments every day because I don't meet that many people. But I try to do like one whenever I meet someone.
I
Yeah.
think it's really important, right, for encouragement. And it's okay to go up and say to somebody, "I like your shoes," or "Your hair is gorgeous."
Yes.
We're not being, straightforward. We really like it, and someday we want to have it like that, or we hope that we can have it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
So for your A word, what word did you give me again?
I said admirable.
So why that word?
I think maybe because I watch a lot of celebrity interviews, like not reality shows, but interviews, uh, and I hope to live such a life also. Is where I like to learn from people who I know I don't have I'm not a fan of anyone ever. I've never been, but I admire qualities about a person. So maybe how a celebrity talks, or how they've handled their career, or how they deal with their art. So I admire qualities about people, and I hope again the same thing is that I think that's something that I want to carry forward in my life, is where I live a life where which is admirable, which someone looks up and says, hey, you know what, she did the best she could. And that's, and especially my own kids, I hope that's something that they look up and say, no matter how much they hate me on any given day for being a mom, but they admire me as a woman. And I hope that's true.
Well, they always say when our kids hate us, we're doing something right.
Yes.
It
Yes.
means that you're being a good parent. So if your kids are not hating on you, it's because you're trying to be too much of a friend to them. And
Yes.
we have to break up that difference, right? We have
Yes.
to show that parents and children, it
Yes.
doesn't mean that we don't want to hang with our kids or
Yes.
that we don't want to be with our children, but we
Yes.
have to break that, you know, that connection and show them the difference so that they understand, not that they're going out and high-fiving everybody, hey, you're my mom, hey, you're this, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. We have to understand why titles were given to us as
Yes.
parents, as moms, dads, grandparents. We need to be able to understand the differences,
Yes.
and instead of division, right?
Yes.
Like, oh well, that's my mom from 5 years ago and that's my
Mm.
dad from 10. I think that's where the confusion comes in, where a lot of the children now
Yes.
today are all confused with who they are or who
Yes.
people are in their lives, and
Yeah.
then they can't build that relationship, they can't build that connection, right?
Yes.
I love the word.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
Continue.
go ahead.
No, I honestly think that we are all always confused. I think people, and I'm sorry if that doesn't align with what you're saying, but I think we are constantly finding ourselves. So people often confuse is the word, but people often confuse confusion with uncertainty.
Yep.
But confusion in as a human, as a child, as a teen, as a young adult, as a adult, as a parent, it comes from constantly finding yourself, constantly worrying if what we're doing is the right thing. I think, like you said, when you're hating yourself, I had read this beautiful quote where someone had said, if you're not worried about what you're doing, then you're probably not making the right decision. Because
Right.
the correct decisions are not easy to make. They're difficult. It takes a long while to get to them. So a lot of people are like, oh, kids are like this and kids are like that, and we are struggling.
Yep.
I said, but that is all good, because how can you find your way if you're not if you're completely sure? Completely sure people scare me, because
Yep.
I
Me
I
too.
teach, yeah, I teach creative writing to kids, and sometimes kids are like so sure of themselves and they're completely doing everything wrong, but they're so sure of themselves. And it's the kids who are not sure and who are like trying, and they're more open to learning.
Yep.
Though of course a lot of issues these days are thanks to social media. Don't even get me started there. uh, because I think it comes from, and I'm adding to your previous point there, where parents are trying to be kids friends because they have so little time with their kids,
Yep.
because kids are overscheduled and they are busy with their gadgets, and parents are working overtime because of course inflation, and all of that leads us to, okay, we have this much time, do I really want to fight with my kid during that time, or do I just want to have a calm time?
Yep.
And then of course there's no parenting happening, because it's parenting is work also. It is
Yep.
exhausting and it is painful, it is physically painful sometimes. So yes, you have to pick your battles, but you have to fight them. And the kids are confused. I mean, not confused. I would say rather, I would rather say they're straying off the beaten path is because they don't have enough guidance being given to them during the time when they are free, when their brains are open to
Yep.
learning and not being, fixed into something.
I'm the same way with you, Aditi. Is
Mm.
when somebody is too comfortable, right? Or it's so easy.
Yeah.
Are they actually working towards something? I'd rather work with somebody who is struggling, who is upfront and saying, this is hard, but
Yes.
let's give it a try.
Yes.
Let's push it, you
Yes.
know, because nothing grows when it's easy.
Yes.
It's like if you plant a seed in the ground and you just expect it to grow, you
Yeah.
don't water it, you don't give it any love, you don't talk to it, and it just grows.
Yeah.
So it's a tree.
Yeah.
But then you plant a seed and you go and you water it and you bring your community to it and you
Yeah.
have events around it. That tree is going to flourish more.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how things are growing and how people are learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's where raising world children gave you that openness. So to
Yes.
say to people, you know what, let's raise all the children, but let's raise them in a way that they understand that the challenges and traditions and stuff like that are different, and they might be challenging, they might be hard. Like when you go and try new food at someone's house, don't be so picky and say, well, no, I only eat, you
Yes.
know try it.
Yes.
And as long as you try, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
you know have that openness, and that's why I love having diversity conversations, and I like to have multiple cultures on tea time, is because we have to open those conversations up.
Yes.
We have to be able to open up to different communities and different countries and say, well, how is it for you in your country? And you
Yeah.
might just be surprised that they eat Chinese too. Like, we eat Chinese in Canada, we eat Chinese in Kuwait, we eat
Yes.
Chinese in India. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Uh, Stop dividing stuff. Start understanding stuff. So
Mhm.
I really want to thank you for that. I want to get into raising world children. Where did you get the title from,
You know,
and how did
sorry.
that come about?
Oh, so that's a bit of a journey there. So I started my journey blogging and back in 2007, and sorry, not seven, eight, and then from blogging I slowly went into freelance writing, and then I was writing for all these platforms, and I said, hey, wait a second, but why is there not a collaborative platform? Because people were doing their own thing, sharing their blogs, but there was no one platform which was talking about how difficult it was raising kids on multiple borders or multiple religions or multiple cultures, because it is a struggle. It's not easy, and everyone's looking for resources, and I'm the first person to say that I want to learn. There is always so much advice I can give, but there is always so much I want to learn from you as well. So when we started so I started raising world children in 2009, sorry, 17. With We started with sorry, 35 writers. We were publishing 3 articles a week, and we were talking about travel, we were talking about multicultural parenting, we were talking about language learning, we were talking about traditions and how they've evolved, we were talking about Muslim culture, Christians, Catholics, intercultural faith, why we were talking about gender biases and all those kind of things. And I have to tell you, editing all those articles and the anthologies that we ended up writing based on the articles was one of the most enriching experiences of my life, because I read and reread, and it is so wonderful to imbibe those stories and learn from them. So, and then of course in 2019 we pivoted to publishing, and I wanted to raise more diverse voices. So then I ended up in 2021. I started coaching other writers who were also writing and creating multicultural brands of their own.
So when did you start writing children's books?
2019, I released my first children's book. Sorry, my first book, Strong Roots Have No Fear. I published it in. This is an old cover. I couldn't find the new one. It's gone. But this was January 2019. It won 2 awards that year, and in December 2019. I'm sorry. In 2020 March, I released How Our Skin Sparkles, which is this one. And this one went on to be Teacher's Pick on Amazon.
So how many books have you written in total?
Total 10.
10?
Yes, so far. Yes.
And
I
what?
published one between when I sent you that bio.
Oh, so she was
And
busy even in between. And like I said, these some of these tea times are booked months ago. So
yes,
there's a lot of things that happen by the time we have our tea times.
yes,
Like in the
yes,
information that you send, like you said, like you got a new book out there.
yes.
So, out of all of the books, which one was the hardest to write?
Wow. Ooh. I think the one is hardest to write is the one I'm working on right now. Is the one about the Gulf War. It's a story I'm writing for preteens, preteens to teens. It's about sharing how that experience helped me find myself, or maybe understand myself and my culture. And of course, it's not like a autobiography. So there's a lot of fiction in there, but it's very difficult to write because it has a lot of real people stories included in it. Not
Okay.
that they know about it, but that walking the fine line of writing something which is from memory, finding the history of it. Like, I have to do a lot of research and make sure I'm being authentic and correct, because a child's mind, I was 10 when that happened, so a child's mind is very different. So, and creating conversations between my parents, because my parents never spoke about anything in front of me. It was all behind closed doors, because of course they don't want to expose us to all the worry. So imagining what they might have said, and what kind of worries they would have, and what kind of conversations and situations they were put through. And of course it's also a story about a mother and daughter, which is something I wanted to talk about, and to reflect that without um, sounding like, I'm being preachy, or I'm trying to, tell people that yes, all mothers are bad. No, it's like, kind of, it's a struggle. It's often a person is still finding themselves, like we were just discussing, a person is finding themselves. So it's a very and it's my first full length book. Like, usually I've written non-fiction, so each chapter can be dealt on its own, and then they cohesively form a book. But writing fiction, especially for young adults, and making it age appropriate, and making sure that it's dealing with situations that they're dealing with now, like bullying, and struggling with, dealing with their parents and things like that, that's been a very challenging. So I've just done 6 chapters, and I find every chapter is so difficult to write. uh, and I keep tweaking it, but yeah, that's it's very slow going, because it's so difficult to write, because it's very emotional also. So sometimes I go back to that emotion that I felt in that moment, and I'm like, oh, that's not nice to talk about. But so it's very tricky.
Well, and I think people need to understand that the writing is hard for some people,
Mhm.
and certain kind of books do take a little longer.
Yes.
And research needs to be done, and
Yes.
you really want to be authentic when you're writing books with especially information from history or the past or stuff like that.
Yes.
And you're going through your own struggles and your own journey, so your story is different than somebody else. So somebody that had gone through it too in your country might have said, well, that's not how it was. Well, for you, that's how it was. I
Yes.
always tell everybody, when someone's writing a story, don't go back and say, well, that's not,
Mm.
that's how that person felt, that's how that person experienced it.
Yes.
Each experience is different, each trauma is different, because
Yes.
that had to have been trauma as well.
Yes.
The
Yes.
up, picking. And we need to open up and understand what trauma is. Like,
Yes.
don't be so scared to speak of it. We
Yes.
all go through it, every single one of us. It doesn't matter what country you come from,
Yes.
there's trauma around us all the time. But you mentioned something as you were sharing, Adita, and that I really want to bring up, is the openness of conversation between parents. Growing up, a lot of our parents kept a lot of the adult stuff away from us. Where
Yes.
today, in today's world, I find that the children are being told too much, and they're
Yes.
being given too much information, and then it kind of mixes them up, and they kind of pick sides and they battle. And
Yeah.
so do you find that do you feel that way as well, that the children in today's world is being given too much information?
I think in life we have to have a balance, and I think we come from a generation. So I have to give a little backstory of this. Is my mom was always very open with me. There was no topic off limits. She discussed everything with me, her own personal struggles, family issues, whatever, and stuff like that. And growing up, I realized that while I appreciated the openness, and she, of course, was always happy to discuss my things also. She was my best friend growing up. She is my best friend. But I also, as a parent, realized that I don't think it was right on of her to put all that burden on me, the family issues and things like that. So if when it so it's totally depend on the topic of what we're talking about. I think if it's a child saying that, hey, like for my book, my we all are sitting and saying my skin colors are different, why is that? I think that's a conversation a parent needs to have at a certain
Definitely.
age, especially when it's brought up by a child. You can't just like say, oh, we're not going to talk about it. But does your child need to know why you're fighting with your husband? No. You know what I mean? Does your child need to know if they're struggling with height? They're being bullied at school. Do they need to know how to stand up for themselves? Yes. Do they need to know about current effects? I mean, unfortunately, if there's a school shooting, do they need to know about how many kids died? No. But do they need to be aware of how to take care of themselves? Yes. Unfortunately, it's a very hard conversation, but you should be having with your child, uh, just so that they are aware. Uh, for example, I mean, that was very morbid, but just like getting lost at a fair,
Yeah.
you need to tell your kid, if you get lost, you need to stand where you're left. Don't start roaming around finding me. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Prepping them for getting lost when you go to a theme park, right? Or issues that they may experience, like maybe they have a person in their class who's different than them. If you notice it at school when you go to the class and you're like, oh, okay, If your child is not brought it up, just bring it up and make sure they're being empathetic to them. That is a conversation a child needs. But do they really need to know about, why someone didn't inherit money or things like that? I think not. So it's a fine balance, but I think as parents we need to make our judgment. And again, every family is different. Maybe some kids end up knowing certain things also, which is fine. But yes, I do believe that our kids don't need to know everything. Another thing also about speaking to kids is that I think our generation is a little at fault where we want to explain everything to our child, what decisions we are making. I'm doing this for you because you are doing this because we are doing this because then this is my personal experience, and I've spoken to my kids about it. Is over the years I've noticed my kids kind of feel entitled to an explanation, and I tell them, I said, I don't know an explanation to my parents, and I don't know an explanation to you. So you need to understand that I tell you things because I want you to be aware of how decision making happens. That doesn't mean you have a say in what I'm saying, right? Again, that's a fine balance. But I think where we have, and again, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
When they learn about why did I choose to spend on a Lego experience and I don't buy them a toy, they need to understand that this the dynamics of that, why I would
Yep.
rather spend $40 on something than buy them a $20 toy. But do they need to understand certain other things? Maybe not. So I think it's a very fine line that we need to be constantly walking. And that's what parenting is, isn't it? It's like 1,000 million decisions you're making in your head constantly, and it's so tiring.
Yeah, parenting is not easy. If anybody says parenting is easy, you scare me.
Yes. Oh, it cannot be easy. Working.
Anybody that says anything is easy, I'm like, oh, I don't
Yes.
know.
Yes.
you
Oh,
know?
especially consequences. It's so difficult to give kids consequences, right? Like you are, because following them through is painful. You tell your kid you are not allowed to watch TV for a week. Every day, morning, noon, and night, they're going to ask you, "Can I watch a little TV? Can little TV?" They'll be constantly back, and you have to like, "No, this is the consequence of this. This is the You have to constantly talk about it. It's tiring.
Yeah. Well, and I find like sometimes the consequences, they also consequence us, right? So we're
Yes.
like, no TV for a week. That
Yes.
means no TV for a week for us.
Yes. Yes. Oh
Because
God. Yes.
it's not good for us to say no TV for you and then TV for
Yes.
us, right? Because then you're giving them a mixed message and you're
Yes.
saying, oh no. And then they start to feel that. And I'm glad that you brought up the entitlement, because entitlement is something that we're really struggling with in today's world.
Yes.
We really got to start understanding and being grateful and appreciative of what we have, instead of
Yes.
feeling that it's yours. It's you right away, it's
Yes.
yours. you
Yes.
know uh we're almost at the hour. I told you it just flies by, right?
Yes.
Time over
Yes.
here. So I want to get into a few more questions on that I've asked you, Adita. I asked you what your favorite color was, and you said teal. So
Mhm.
why teal?
I don't know. My colors change. These days it's teal. I think it's because it's associated with my brand, because most of my books are in that family of teals. Like it's close to. I think all the books have some sort of like they're closer to teal than they are other things. And I don't know. It just these days I like teal. There's no reason for it.
And I asked you one word to describe yourself, and you gave me easy, creative,
No, multi-creative, I think.
multi-creative.
Yes.
So
Yes.
why that word?
Okay, so for that, I think someone would need to understand what I do in a given day. So I will take Wednesday as an example because it kind of helps. So I get up in the morning. Of course, I prep my kids' lunch and I go do stuff. I finish my things, and then I go to my daughter's school to teach Bollywood dance to the morning club. After that, because I love dancing, I'm a trained classical dancer. I've learned two dance forms. So I love dancing, but it's very difficult to find outlets for it. So so I'll choreograph cultural events and all that. So that's one aspect of me. And then during the day, I'll edit other people's books, or I'll be coaching other people, and I'll be and then in the afternoon, I teach creative writing to kids. So, and then in the evening, of course, I do my own thing when I'm cooking and things like that. And I always be creative in my cooking because I cannot eat the same dish 2 days in a row myself. So, so yes, I am multi-creative. And when I want to relax, I draw and I paint and I do art stuff. I'm not good at it. I am not good at it at all, but I love doing it. So that's why multi creative.
So I have a question here. What is Bollywood dance?
Oh, Bollywood dancing is nothing. It's there is nothing called Bollywood dancing. Bollywood dancing is just a mix of hip hop and Indian cultural
Oh,
moves. So it's actually a lot of Bollywood actors and actresses. They don't like the term Bollywood because it comes from Hollywood.
oh,
It's more of Indian cinema. So I would like to call it Indian dancing, but Bollywood is more a more colloquial term that the world understands. Is where any dancing on songs from Indian cinema is called Bollywood dancing per se, unless it's traditional. So
oh.
any if you mix bhangra steps into with hip hop, it becomes Bollywood kind of thing. So there are like certain moves.
So is it kind of like belly dancing?
No, 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 nothing like that.
No?
No, not at all. It's a mix of various kinds of dance form. It's like a in Hindi it's called khichdi, like when you mix a lot of leftovers and you make a dish. So it's kind of like that. So it's a mix of various. So it'll have a little classical, it'll have a little folk, it'll have a little hip hop, a little disco, and then that's just it's just fun. So basically, dancing on any Indian song is called Bollywood dancing.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm learning so much from today's tea time,
Yes.
and I like the way that you said it's a little bit hip hop. It's a little this. It's almost like you were making a sauce or something. You're putting some
Yes.
spice, putting some sugar,
Yes.
putting some flour. You
Yes.
know, and that's what it is. We need to understand, and we need to grow with different traditions and different
Yes.
things. Like we're learning as we grow, right? And I
Yes.
love having guests that teach me stuff because I'm just like,
Mm.
oh, that's interesting. I've never,
Mm.
I've heard of Bollywood dancing. I just
Yes.
never knew what it was. And I
Mm.
and I was that person that thought, oh, it came from Hollywood because it
Yes.
had the wood on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, so what message would you like to give out to everybody that is not multicultural?
Well, I would say find a way to be because that's the future. I mean, they say the world is expanding and contracting at the same time. Like, with the internet, everyone's right next to you, but we are all getting further and further away emotionally. So I think being multicultural, just watching various content or reading books that are diverse, that have messages of diversity and inclusion, and that empower your child, they're a great way to just and yourself are a great way to expand your horizons without leaving the home, because it's not easy to do. I mean, a lot of people these days are kind of like, oh, traveling is great, but guess what, traveling costs a lot of money. Buying a $10 book is cheap. You can buy a book, or don't even buy a book, just ask your library to host my books. Just Google my book, and you have an ISBN number. You can ask your library that this is a book, and this is why I want it, and this is the reason I would love for you to host it. And libraries buy the books for you. So there are many ways that you can access. Attend your local cultural events, expose yourself to people and their different stories. And I was just talking to someone about the other day. I said, if you want to change the world, all you need to do is be more mindful yourself in your everyday. And that's all it takes. Because if we all were just mindful of ourselves and we were all just kinder ourselves, especially to ourselves, I think what would be a better place, anyways.
Well, I think it's really important just to get out there and get open, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so, if anybody would like to reach out to you and work with you, how could they reach out to you?
You can reach me via my Instagram at Raising World Children, or Aditi W Singh. That's ADITIWSINGH, as it says here. Uh, and of course, you can Google me and check out my testimonials and things like that. And of course, I offer 20-minute free consult to see if it would be a good fit to work together. And I love working on multicultural books. I specialize in cultural sensitivity and books that are about special issues. I love because there is the traditional publishers are still working in a certain format, which is the beauty of indie publishing, where you can set up a brand and you can tell the stories that need to be told today. Uh, I help doing that. I've so far worked with over 200 authors, and it's always a lovely experience working and creating stories for tomorrow.
Well, I really want to thank you for joining me today on Tea Time, Aditi. I learned so much from you. And for all the listeners and viewers out there, if this tea time resonated with you and you want to show a different flow, a different kind of tea, share this tea time with a family member or a friend or with your local schools. And if you want some interesting books for your schools or your classrooms or stuff, like, check out Raising World Children. The books are amazing. Your platform is really open, and she does work with a lot of different people. So I
Yes.
highly recommend that you check her out. So again, Aditi, I want to thank you. I want to thank all the
Thank
supporters
you.
and listeners today. If you're listening, please push hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. And I will see everybody at 3 p.m. with the second tea time. And we're going to be talking about acceptance. And we will have captions on because my guest is deaf. So we will have that going on. So we are opening up today's conversation with a lot of multicultures, a lot of understanding, a lot of diversity and inclusion. So be sure to check out all tea times this afternoon and this evening. And then tonight we're going to be bringing back returning guest, Natasha Dean. She'll be coming in and she'll be talking about children's writing. So we're talking about books and children and all that good stuff. So until then, I will see everybody at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and then 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for this week's shows.